The auditorium was full. Roughly 80 people, doctors, nurses, technicians, and former patients, filled every seat in the front rows. The cold overhead lights clashed with the warmth of applause that rippled unevenly through the room. At the back of the stage, a large screen displayed a single image, the smiling face of Dr. Emily Carter. The caption beneath was simple, almost cruel in its timing: a life devoted to healing. At exactly 7 p.m., the hospital director, Dr. Raymond Schultz, stepped up to the microphone with a folded speech in his hands. Tonight, we honor not only an exceptional professional, but a symbol of what it means to care even when no one is watching. Dr. Emily is a quiet pillar in this hospital. That's what he said. But no one in the room knew the truth. Emily Carter had been dead for over an hour, alone, in her office, eyes still open, her badge still around her neck, like a final tether to the building that had never truly seen her. No one noticed she wasn't there for her own tribute. Some said she didn't like public speaking. Others claimed she was simply humble, letting others speak on her behalf. And speak they did. Colleagues told stories, former patients cried, every word poured onto a stage she was never going to walk, all while her body grew cold in silence. Emily Carter, 47 years old, internal medicine for 23 years, not one missed shift in nearly a decade, no children, no spouse, no online presence, as if she only existed in that building, between hallways, charts, and the quiet sighs of the forgotten. She didn't smile often, but she listened better than anyone, which is why everyone thought they knew her. They didn't. No one did. No one knew what she carried behind the door with her name. No one saw the envelope on her desk, or the handwritten letter, ink sharp and intentional, like someone who'd already decided everything. At 7:42 p.m., a night shift security guard, Jason Miller, knocked on her door with a delivery. No answer. He knocked again at 7:44. Still nothing. At 7:46, he opened the door, and what he saw never left him. Emily was seated, back against the leather of her chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling, like she was waiting for something that never came. On the desk, a wine glass. Beside it, an empty bottle. In her left hand, a letter. The ceremony was still in progress. The final speaker, a nurse named Rebecca Holmes, was just finishing her tribute when Dr. Schultz's phone buzzed. He read the message, paused. Then, pale and trembling, he leaned into the microphone and said, "We have to end this now." The room went still. The applause died, and in its place came a silence that said more than any eulogy could. The news traveled fast. By 8:15, whispers had reached the emergency department. By 8:30, the pediatric wing had gone quiet. By 9 a.m., even the cafeteria stopped serving. No official statement was made. They didn't need to. Someone found Dr. Carter, and she wasn't breathing. Security blocked access to the office. Police arrived, but there was no crime scene, no signs of violence. Just a glass, a bottle, a letter. Detective Mark Ellison stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Doesn't look like she changed her mind," he muttered. "She was deliberate." The coroner nodded. No hesitation, no last-minute call. She made sure no one would find her in time. The next morning, the hospital issued a carefully worded memo. "We are deeply saddened by the loss of Dr. Emily Carter. Her legacy of service and compassion will forever remain a part of our hospital family." No cause of death, no context, just a clean paragraph. Sanitized, like hospitals are trained to do. But one person didn't accept it. Dr. Olivia Grant, Emily's closest colleague, former roommate, oldest friend. She didn't cry when she read the memo. She didn't speak. She just said quietly, "This doesn't make sense." Because it didn't. Emily Carter wasn't impulsive. She wasn't emotional. She was meticulous. And if she left, it meant something drove her there. Something bigger than grief. And Olivia was going to find out what it was. Dr. Olivia Grant didn't cry at the funeral. She stood in the back of the chapel, arms crossed, watching as white coats filled the pews and directors gave their rehearsed tributes. They spoke of Dr. Emily Carter as if she had passed away peacefully, quietly, as though she simply closed her eyes and let go. But Olivia knew better. She had read the letter, heard the recordings, seen the files, and she had no intention of letting the system bury what it had done. The hospital board wiped everything clean. Emily's emails, her internal notes, even her ID credentials. They issued an official cause, a private medical condition. No one said the word suicide. No one mentioned the bottle, or the wine glass, or the letter. But Olivia had printed it before it vanished, and now it sat in her coat pocket like a quiet, loaded weapon. She started where Emily had stopped, the records department. It was buried in the basement, dim, dusty, rarely visited. She smiled at the clerk on duty, showed her credentials, and walked straight to the transfer files from the past 18 months. There, she found them. Patients discharged without treatment, notes erased, plans replaced. In every case, someone had signed over Emily's decisions, and more than once, that name was Dr. Dennis Claiborne, head of internal medicine, and Emily's direct superior. One case stood out. Richard Lawson, 61, diagnosed with treatable lymphoma, scheduled for chemotherapy, but suddenly discharged under financial review. He died less than 2 weeks later. Emily had signed none of it. Claiborne had, and Olivia felt something inside her shift. This wasn't just oversight. It was intentional. That night, Olivia barely slept. She opened her laptop and started building the case. Names, dates, forms, emails, audio, everything. By sunrise, she had over 70 pages. But she needed someone inside. Someone who knew where the bodies were hidden. That someone was Lucas Brennan, head of compliance. Quiet, by the book. Trusted no one, except, maybe, Emily. She waited outside his office for almost an hour. When he finally opened the door, she didn't hesitate. "I know why Emily died." He didn't blink. "And I know the board is covering it up." Silence. Then, "Leave, Dr. Grant. Not until I finish what she started." He hesitated, then stepped aside. 10 minutes. Inside, he handed her a flash drive. "She gave me this a week before. She said I'd know when to use it." Olivia's heart raced. "Have you listened?" "I couldn't." "I will." That night, Olivia plugged it in. What she heard turned her stomach. Emily's voice, calm but tight. "If you're hearing this, I'm probably gone. I tried. I really did. But they made me choose, lie or disappear. And I won't lie. Not for them, not for money, not for reputation." More recordings followed. She detailed patient cases, overridden treatments, financial manipulation, whistleblower retaliation, each file carefully named, each time stamped. It was everything. Olivia backed it all up, then backed it up again. Flash drives, cloud storage, hard copies in a drawer at home. Because now she understood. Emily didn't want revenge. She wanted to be believed. Dr. Olivia Grant knew she was being watched. It started with subtle signs. Her hospital access restricted. Documents missing. Co-workers avoiding eye contact. And then a note slipped under her office door. Stop. Let the dead rest. She didn't. Instead, she duplicated everything. Emily's audio files, the patient records, the emails, all of it. Backups in multiple locations, copies stored offline, and a printed copy of Emily's letter, folded tightly in Olivia's coat pocket. 3 days after finding the flash drive, she was summoned. A disciplinary hearing. The accusation? Unauthorized access to private medical records. Seated at the head of the table, Dr. Dennis Claiborne. He was calm. Too calm. Dr. Grant, do you understand the severity of this breach? Olivia stared at him. Do you understand the severity of falsifying patient care for profit? Claiborne didn't flinch. This isn't about that. But Olivia was done being polite. She pulled out a transcript of Emily's letter and laid it on the table. I know what happened. I have proof, and I'm not afraid of you. The board exchanged uncomfortable glances. Dr. Lorraine Beck cleared her throat. We'll reconvene tomorrow. You're dismissed. But Olivia already knew what that meant. The next day, her ID badge stopped working. Security met her at the front entrance. You've been placed on administrative leave. They handed her an envelope. Inside, official suspension. Indefinite. Just like that, 12 years of service erased. But Olivia wasn't finished, because the truth was no longer in the hospital. It was in her hands. That night, she drove to the apartment of Sarah Brennan, freelance journalist, and sister of compliance officer Lucas. Olivia handed her the drive. Everything's here. Names, files, recordings. It's time. Sarah hesitated. If I publish this, they'll come after you. Let them try. 3 days later, the headline dropped. One doctor's death, a hospital's secret, the Emily Carter files, by Sarah Brennan. It spread fast. Local news, statewide, then national. In 48 hours, Olivia's name was everywhere. By day 5, health regulators launched an investigation. Day 6, reporters camped outside the hospital. Day 7, Claiborne resigned. But Olivia didn't celebrate, because justice didn't feel like justice, not without Emily. 2 weeks later, Olivia returned, not as a doctor, but as a witness. She faced the hospital board again, read Emily's letter out loud. This time, no one interrupted. When she finished, she said, "You applauded her too late. You mourned her only when she became a liability." Silence. No one disagreed, because they couldn't. Changes came fast after that. Policy reviews, whistleblower protections, old cases reopened, apologies issued. But Olivia? She stayed quiet, because she knew systems don't change from guilt. They change from exposure. And she had exposed them. Weeks later, she visited Emily's grave. No flowers, just a printed copy of the article. Folded, faded. She laid it gently on the stone and whispered, "You were right. And now, everyone knows." The article didn't just expose a corrupt system. It ignited something. Emails flooded into Sarah Brennan's inbox. But they weren't from media. They came from nurses, doctors, techs, people who had worked beside Emily Carter, people who had been afraid to speak, until someone else finally did. Now, they wanted to be heard too. One message stood out. The sender, Margaret Ellison, retired. 30 years in the hospital's records department. The subject line, "There's more." Sarah called Olivia immediately. They met in a quiet corner of an old diner, the kind with sticky tables and flickering lights. Sarah passed her the message. "I remember Dr. Carter. She was kind, quiet. But I also remember the day she started asking too many questions about files, about patients who vanished, about numbers that didn't add up. I found something once, a folder that wasn't meant to be filed. It had her name on it. It was labeled Risk Profile, EC. Olivia stared at the screen. They built a file on her. Sarah nodded. They saw her coming before she even moved. 2 days later, they met Margaret in person. A small park. She came alone, brought the envelope. Hands shaking, she said, "I couldn't just throw it away." Inside, internal memos, printouts, notes, all tracking Emily's behavior, her logins, patient access, meetings she attended, who she talked to. One document stamped in red. Monitor closely. High risk for internal leak. Signed, Claiborne. Emily hadn't just been ignored. She had been watched, targeted, neutralized, but with dignity, with structure, with words like protocol and evaluation. They hadn't needed to fire her. They isolated her until she faded, then applauded her memory. Sarah's second article came 1 week later. The Risk Profile, How a Hospital Turned a Doctor into a Threat. This time, it hit harder, because it wasn't just about death anymore. It was about the quiet violence of systems that label compassion a liability. More media attention, more leaks. Old patients reached out. Families of the dead demanded answers. Some even remembered Emily. A look, a word, a moment. One patient wrote, "She made me feel human." That was enough. Then came the letter. No return address, just a folded note left on Olivia's doorstep. "I was her patient. I owe her my life. Thank you for not letting her vanish quietly." For the first time, Olivia let herself cry, not from grief, from relief. Dr. Olivia Grant hadn't walked through the hospital's main entrance in over 3 months. Now she stood in front of the glass doors, watching her reflection. She looked older, not just tired, transformed. The woman who once walked these halls with purpose now carried something heavier, but she entered anyway. No one stopped her, no security, no questions. The lobby buzzed with noise like it always had, but none of it touched her. This was her last visit, not for meetings, not for testimony, for closure. She made her way up to the 4th floor, turned left, past the old nurse's station, toward the office that used to belong to Dr. Emily Carter. The nameplate was gone, the desk empty, walls painted over. Still, the ghost was there. She stepped inside, sat down, let the silence fall. She reached into her coat, pulled out a sealed envelope, her own letter. She placed it gently on the desk, then took out Emily's ID badge. Still intact, still worn. She laid it beside the letter and whispered, "You didn't die for nothing." She stood, straightened her shoulders, and left the room. Didn't look back. Some battles don't end with applause. They end with someone choosing to walk away, alive. Outside, the sky was overcast, wind against the glass, a storm coming. But Olivia smiled, because truth, once spoken, doesn't go silent again. It echoes. If this story moved you, don't let it fade into silence. Subscribe to this channel for stories that uncover what the world tries to bury. Because behind every tribute, there may be a voice that was silenced too soon. Subscribe. Listen. Remember.